Good morning. Welcome back to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Thursday, October 5th. It's about 9:30 in the morning, and I'm still here in Port Dickson, Malaysia. As often happens to me, I took a ferry from Sumatra, crossing over into Malaysia. I get off the ferry, and I get a hotel room in the port town, and weeks later, I'm still here. I haven't moved on. That happens to me quite often. I appear to be content no matter where I am. I wasn't intending to do this at all, to be honest, but when I got here, I realized how much video I still had from Sumatra that I hadn't edited and uploaded yet. So in my brain, I'm thinking, okay, I'll just stay here for a couple of days. You know, I'll just blow through these videos, get them uploaded, and then I'm done, and then I can keep moving on. But as always, I severely underestimated how long it was going to take to edit those videos. But of course, part of the explanation is that my videos are quite long. And my most recent video project is a good example of that, because this was back in Padang in Sumatra, and I got on my scooter in the morning, and then I just basically went out exploring for the day, and then I rode my scooter at the end of the day back to my hotel, and that was, in my mind, the video. So basically, I shot video about my day in Padang, and that included having breakfast, getting on the scooter, going to a park, exploring the park, then going to get a cup of coffee, and then I found myself riding my scooter up the river, and then I visited some men that I got to know, some fishermen and boatmen, had drinks with them, and then I went to a lookout point, then I went to a beach, then I went to a harbor, and then I stopped off at a mountainside cafe, then I went to another cafe back in Padang, and by the time I took all the video that I shot that day and just put it into a timeline, like all the video I shot, I had two cameras running, one GoPro on my chest harness, one GoPro mounted on the scooter handlebars. I just took all the raw video, dumped it into a timeline, and it was over 4 hours of video. And then I did a rough edit of that where I just went through the whole thing from beginning to end, and I just deleted all the parts where nothing was happening. I'm just riding my scooter or whatever. Any of the video I didn't need, I just cut it out, deleted it, and by the time I did that, I ended up with, after a rough edit, a video that was 3 hours and 8 minutes long. Right? So it was like, even for me, that's a bit excessive, that's a bit much. So I came up with this idea for this video. You can see it on my Planet Doug YouTube channel right now. I took that 3-hour video and I isolated 10 separate events out of the day. Like I mentioned, I had breakfast, then I went to the park, then I rode along the river, then I went to a lookout point, then I went to a beach, then I did this, then I did that. When I made a list, and there were 10 separate events or 10 separate experiences that made up the day. And I thought, I've done this in the past, I've kind of experimented with this in the past. I thought, well, why don't I just carve out those 10 individual experiences, and rather than posting a 3-hour video, why don't I post 10 shorter videos about each individual event? And then that's what I did. I went through the whole video and I made 10 separate shorter videos. Some of them are like 10 minutes long, some are 15, and some are as long as, half an hour, depending on what the experience is. It was an interesting experiment. I didn't really want to do it or like to do it because I'm really interested in structure. I like things to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in my mind, most of my videos are based on the structure of a day, like not really a place or an event. I shoot my videos more like they're journals about my day. So at the beginning of the day, I talk about what I'm going to do that day, and I film myself getting on the scooter and riding to the first place, and then doing that, and then riding to the next place, doing that. And, it's a continuous experience that began when the sun rose and it ended at sunset, and encapsulates the entire day. And in my mind, that's the structure. And then once I isolate one event out of that day, the structure is gone. Like, there is no structure. The video starts with me riding a scooter, and then it ends, and there's no real beginning or end to it. There's no context. And it got a little bit complicated because throughout the day, I might be talking about different subjects, and that thread would continue throughout the whole day. So in each individual video, like the 10 separate videos that I made, there might be a thread going through all of them in which I'm talking about the same subject. But once you isolate them, there's no connection anymore. And this stuff I'm talking about just comes out of nowhere. So I realized that. So then I had to kind of isolate those threads and then delete them from each portion, because they're not connected anymore and they make no sense. And then, of course, if you have 10 separate videos, in my case, I like to have like a little title card at the beginning, a conclusion, credits card at the end, things like that. Then you have to make a separate thumbnail for each video. You have to export and upload each video individually and make the thumbnail, write the description, do all of the post-processing work. So by the time I was done with the 10 videos, it took probably twice as long as making the 1 3-hour video would have been, right? In terms of the editing, it takes twice as long to divide it up that way. So anyway, that's what I've been doing lately. And yeah, that has taken a lot of time, much more time than I anticipated. But it was an interesting experiment. Obviously, for YouTube, shorter is better. The most successful YouTubers make short videos. And if you're just a casual YouTube viewer and you're scanning all of these thumbnails looking for something to watch, you're not going to click on a 3-hour video. I mean, why would you? Unless people have said to me they sometimes have my videos just playing in the background. They're, cleaning the house or washing dishes or making dinner or driving their car maybe. And then they might have the video playing in the background because, yeah, you can't sit in front of a video screen in front of your computer for 3 hours. I mean, when a Hollywood movie is 3 hours long, people complain. So, a YouTube video 3 hours long, it's a bit much. So it's better to have shorter videos if you can pull it off. But again, for me, I don't enjoy them as much. I don't enjoy filming short videos. I don't really enjoy editing short videos. I'm a long form kind of guy. It just feels like it suits me. But anyway, that's that's what I've been working on lately. And it will be interesting to see what kind of a reaction people have to it online. I mean, I don't anticipate a big reaction. I don't have a huge audience on YouTube. But I think most people who know me have gotten used to my style. They're accustomed to me posting 1-hour videos. That's the average length for me, 1 hour. And then suddenly having 10-minute videos is like, what the heck? I can see some people not liking that approach, and it's kind of weird. But I can also see somebody sitting down, they got, I don't know, they're on their way to work, whatever, and their computer is up, and they're like, oh, 10 minutes from Planet Doug, they can click on it. And while they're having their morning coffee, they watch that one 10-minute video, and then they can watch the second 10-minute video over lunch, that kind of thing. You're sitting on the the MRT in Kuala Lumpur or back in Canada on the subway system, you know, oh, 10 minutes, that'll get me to my next stop, you know, and you watch the video. And I did something in these videos that I've played around with this sort of thing before, and just for fun, I thought I would do it again. The idea is that for YouTube, you sort of want to encourage people to watch your video all the way to the end. So I remember a long time ago, I was, you know, watching all these tutorial videos about how to make a YouTube channel, all the best practices and policies, you know. And one of the things that people talked about was somehow structuring your video so that you're encouraging people to watch longer and kind of reward them if they get all the way to the end of the video. So I think when I was in Bangladesh, I was doing quizzes. So at the end of the video, I would actually have a little quiz about something to do about the history of Bangladesh or something that happened in the video, just like a question. And I would ask people who watched the video this question, and then I would say, you know, you can get the answer to the video in the next video or something like that. And then anyone who watched the video to the end would be rewarded by this little quiz and a little factoid, you know, a little interesting fact about Bangladesh. So I did that for a while, but then I stopped doing it because nobody seemed to be that interested in them. It didn't seem to have any effect, and it took a lot of time to do them, you know, so the work involved didn't seem worth it. But anyway, it's something I think about all the time. And in this case, I came up with a different idea related to the comments, where at the end of the video, I put another title card after the credits. And I'm calling this, I'll explain why in a minute, I'm sort of calling this the Crunch Club. So here is a question for the Crunch Club, and then I'll just ask people a question. So if the video was about a beach that I went to, I think the question I asked was something like, you know, what kind of beach do you like to visit? Like, do you like big, popular, crowded beaches with lots of activities and lots of people? Or do you look for the isolated, tropical beach in the middle of nowhere and you're there all by yourself? You know, what kind of beach do you like? And I probably asked, you know, what is your favorite beach in the world? Or what country has the most beautiful beaches? And then I would say, you know, write your answer in the comments. And then if somebody does write a comment answering those questions, I know they watched the video all the way to the end, because only people who stick with the video all the way to the end would even know the question is there. You know, it's sort of a little treasure, a little thing, a little question at the end of the video. And there's a YouTube channel out there that I quite enjoy, oddly enough. I don't think I'm not in the target audience for that video or for that channel, called How Ridiculous. And it's a group of 3 friends who ages ago, just out of, you know, just for fun, they did a couple of trick shot videos for YouTube, like shooting a basketball into a basketball hoop but over a house or something like that, or standing on the roof of a house and trying to sink a basket, and then how many times does it take them to get it? You know, those sort of trick shots. You see them all over YouTube these days. But for whatever reason, a combination of what they did and their fun personalities, their videos were extremely popular, and it became a thing, you know, and now their channel is a huge business. You know, How Ridiculous. It's, you know, they're still doing it years and years and years later with millions of subscribers and millions of views and a merchandise shop. You know, they're making tons of money, and it's a big successful thing. But at one point in their history, they came up with the same idea, to put something at the end of the video, and they said, they created a club. They call it the 44 Club. So that if you watch their video all the way to the end, that makes you an automatic member of the 44 Club. And I guess it happened organically while they were making one of their videos. They're getting way to the end of the video, and one of the guys said, hey, if you're still watching the video, put 44 in the comments, and I know that you watched all the way to the end. It's like a secret. And then when they looked at the video comments, a few people just had 44. They left a comment that just said, 44, the number 44. And everybody was wondering, what the heck does that mean? Like, why are you putting 44? It was like a little secret club that only the people who watched the video all the way to the end even knew about. And it became a very popular thing. And now they kept talking about the 44 Club. They get to the end of the video and they give a special hello. Hey, hello to you all, to the 44 Club out there. Thanks for watching the video all the way to the end. And people who didn't watch the video, the full video, they never even knew the 44 Club existed. So I kind of stole a little bit of that idea. And my Planet Doug 44 Club, I called it the Crunch Club. It's goofy. It's not organic because I actually thought about the name for this club, and I called it the Crunch Club. And to my mind, it's related to Planet Doug, because when I chose the name, the Planet Doug, I had two ideas in mind. One is that at that time, I was listening to a podcast about the human biome. I forget the name of it now, but the human body as its own kind of ecosystem. The human body houses trillions of bacteria and viruses, microbes of all kinds. And as you walk around, and you've got mites, these little mites, you don't like to think about them, but there's mites crawling around on your skin all the time. They live on your face and places like that. And they're so small that you can't even see them. So the whole idea is that you've got, the planet Earth with thousands of species living on it. My body, my human body, is its own planet, and there are thousands of species living inside my body and on my body who basically exist only because my body exists, like I'm my own planet in a way. And I just thought that was an interesting concept. So that was one reason I came at it. And, the whole idea of planets and universes and galaxies and stars, and each of us, our own body, is like a planet that these other creatures live on. Like I'm a creature living on this planet, but there are other creatures for whom my body is actually a planet. Funny, but kind of interesting. Actually, I was listening to a Neil deGrasse Tyson short on YouTube the other day, and he was saying, a little Neil deGrasse Tyson factoid, that if you take 1 centimeter of the human digestive system, like you cut 1 centimeter of the human intestine, there are more microbes living in that 1 centimeter than all human beings who have ever existed throughout all of time. So think about that. That's just like 1 centimeter of your digestive system contains more living creatures than all the humans that have ever lived on the planet Earth. So anyway, the numbers are extraordinary. But the other way I was thinking about it was, okay, Planet Doug kind of works because I don't have a fixed subject for my videos. So I was kind of implying that my videos are about the world of Planet Doug, the things I'm thinking about, the things I'm doing, my perspective. And that kind of title for my channel gives me permission to talk about anything. I mean, it's more or less about traveling, Planet Doug, but I also like to just talk about random things that I'm thinking about or heard about. and my own unique perspective on the world, Planet Doug, which is not the same planet as other people are living on, as we all do. I have my own perspective on life and living and that sort of thing. So I've got all these different ideas about what Planet Doug means in terms of planets and solar systems and galaxies and ecosystems. But then the crunch is like the end of all of that. Like we've got the Big Bang, the beginning of the universe, and then when you get all the way to the end of the universe, when everything contracts again, everything stops expanding, and the entire universe collapses on itself, they call that in physics the Big Crunch. So the end of my video is the Crunch Club, just as the end of the universe, the end of all life, is the Big Crunch. So that was my main idea for calling it the Crunch Club. And then I liked the sound, 2-letter C's, Crunch Club, CC, how ridiculous. Says put 44 in the comments. I can say, if you've watched the video all the way to the end, put CC in the comments, which stands for Crunch Club. And I love the word crunch because there's also this idea of the crunch being the most important time of anything, right? This is the crunch time. Like for a business to make money, maybe Christmas is crunch time for them. That's the most important time of year for them, when they sell the most products, and that keeps their business alive. This is crunch time. A student who gets all the way to the end of the semester and is writing the final exams, that's crunch time. So crunch time is always at the very end of something, the most important time. And for a YouTube video, you could say that the end of the video is crunch time. If you've managed to keep someone watching your video for 3 hours and getting all the way to the end of that video, well, that is crunch time. So for me, the Crunch Club, crunch time, it works on many different levels, and I just kind of like the sound of it too. And I can ask people, how crunchy was this video? Crunchiness can become a level of quality. Like if you like the video so much that you watch it all the way to the end, well, that's a crunchy video, right? And then if people just watch 2 minutes at the beginning and then they just turn it off and go look for something else, well, that video wasn't very crunchy, was it? So anyway, I've introduced the Crunch Club to Planet Doug. We'll see how it goes over. I think I've only posted 1 or 2 videos so far where I have a question at the end, where there's something about the Crunch Club. I don't explain it at all. I just put a title card that says the Crunch Club question. And I think another video is going live today on Thursday. And it will also have a Crunch Club question. But so far, nobody has answered any of the questions. Nobody has asked in the comments, like, what is this Crunch Club business? What are you talking about? Maybe I've only posted 1 video so far that had the Crunch Club in it. I can't remember. But anyway, speaking about all topics being good for Planet Doug, because of Planet Doug is the name, I can talk about anything I want. I talk about things like milk cartons. And in the last video, I was talking about these Dutch lady milk cartons and how I bought one of these and I put it in my knapsack, and then the carton leaked because it has this kind of a very thin aluminum foil covering that seals it. It's got a seal there. And for whatever reason, the seal didn't hold, and the entire liter of milk poured out into my knapsack and created a huge problem. So I talked about that at length in my last behind the scenes video. And yesterday I went to the same store, 99 Speed Mart, and I wanted to buy another liter of milk. And I found, Dutch lady milk, and check it out. They changed the lid. I was just talking about how this lid isn't secure enough, and the very next, in that week, The next time I go back to buy milk, they've changed the lid. And this one has a screw cap. And I was talking about how the screw cap is much better because it, you tighten it down and it's not going to leak. This is very precarious. You have to be very gentle with this, but this one is fine. And it has little plastic teeth holding it in place. So you can still tell whether it's been opened or not. You can look at those little teeth, and as long as the teeth, are still holding it in place, it's never been opened. And when you open it, it breaks that teeth. And then I believe there still is an aluminum foil seal underneath it. And when you take off the lid, it automatically tears open that seal, and then you can pour it out. And then when you put this back on, it's this won't leak. So that's kind of cool. I have a psychic connection with the Dutch lady company, it appears. One day I talk about how they should change their lids, and the next day they did it. That's kind of cool. I was very happy to see that, actually. Good job, Dutch lady. I very much appreciate the change. And speaking of technology, the lid on this Dutch lady carton is a type of technology. I have a few stories of my own technological struggles. One that is driving me crazy that I don't understand at all is now my Olympus camera is giving me all kinds of issues. I was just recording this video, and then out of nowhere it shut down and said the battery was empty. And that came as a surprise because I had just recharged all my batteries. But now the battery recharger isn't working that well. It's like I put the battery into the charger and you're supposed to get a yellow light comes on that tells you it's charging. But now whenever I put the battery in, the yellow light doesn't come on. I put it in again, the yellow light starts flashing. Then I put it in, I have to insert the battery over and over and over again. And finally the yellow light comes on, stays on, to indicate it's charging. So then I walk away and I leave it. But then after a few minutes, it just turns off and stops charging. So if I go out for the day and I come back and the yellow light is off, that tells me the battery is fully charged. And I set it aside, but it turns out that it's not happening anymore because it just stops charging after a few minutes. I think it's charged. I put it into the camera and I start recording, and then it turns out the battery never charged up at all. So now I don't know what, I've got it over there on the counter, which is why I keep looking over there, and I can see the yellow light. I just put the battery back in and the yellow light is still on. So it's charging right now, but I can't trust it anymore. I have no idea whether it's charging up or not. Anyway, one technological problem that has cropped up, and I don't know how to fix that one either. On YouTube, I encountered a few things. I was talking the other day about making thumbnails, and if you go into the YouTube studio and open up the video, YouTube gives you 3 thumbnail options. There's 3 of them. The computer scans your video and it picks images that it thinks would be good for a thumbnail. They're always the same. I noticed that it's basically looking for you. It always wants a human in the thumbnail. It will never choose anything else. Like, it'll always choose a human face, and the human face has to be smiling. And if you're doing anything with your hands, like if you're like a big facial expression with a hand gesture, that's what the computer picks every time, and which is kind of interesting. But what I noticed was, out of the 3 videos it offers as a selection, it also allows you to download them so you can then edit that thumbnail yourself on your own editing program and add text to it and things like that. But only the default is in high enough resolution to download. So when you open up your video, the computer has given you 3 options, has selected one of them, and that one that it's selected, you can download it. But the other 2, you can't, because they're just fuzzy. They're just so out of focus and fuzzy and pixelated you can't use them as a thumbnail. And that always bothered me. It's like, because often number 2 or number 3, they're the ones I want to use, but I can't download them. So then I have to go into the video, you know, play the video, find find that screenshot or find that image, pause the video, take a screenshot at a highest resolution possible, and I can use that as the thumbnail. But I can't use the one in the YouTube Studio app, and that always bothered me. But I discovered a workaround. It turns out that you can use those thumbnails, but what you have to do is manually select them, make that one the one you want to use, exit out, save your changes, then go back in, open it for editing, and now the one that you chose will be at a higher resolution and you can download it. So if you want all 3 of those thumbnails as options, you know, you open up the video, you have to download the first one, then select the second one, exit, save your changes, reopen it, open that video for editing, download the second one, choose the third one, make it your selection, exit out, save it, reopen it, and then download it. And I ask you, how much is Google and YouTube worth? How many billions of dollars is that company worth? We can't even imagine. How many thousands of software programmers and engineers work at Google and at YouTube? I can't even imagine. They must have a workforce of unbelievable size. And yet out of that vast workforce, none of them can fix this problem. Like not one of them, it ever occurred to them that, oh, actually all the 3 YouTube, you know, thumbnails that we offer to our YouTubers, they can only use one of them. That's the only one that shows up at a proper resolution. What, you're telling me that no one has noticed this problem? It just boggles my mind. I find so many problems in the YouTube system that are so basic and so obvious, and I wonder why in the world they've never fixed any of these things. It really boggles my mind. I just don't get it at all. The biggest one is the fact that in the YouTube Studio app, you cannot upload a video. And if you're not a YouTuber, you don't make YouTube videos, you probably don't understand the significance of that statement. However, YouTube has created a separate app, YouTube Studio app. It is designed for YouTubers to manage and control all of the videos on their channel. You go to YouTube Studio to open the dashboard, see all the comments. There's a separate tab for comments. You go there to interact with people, see comments, reply to comments. All the analytics are there. The monetization is there. All the settings for descriptions and thumbnails. Everything you need to do to manage your YouTube channel is supposed to be in the Studio app. Do you know what the one thing you can't do in the Studio app? You can't upload a video. There's no button, there's no system in the Studio app where you can upload a video to your YouTube channel, which arguably is the most important thing. Like, out of all the things you can do to manage your YouTube channel, the most important thing you need to do as a YouTuber is upload videos. Unless you upload a video, you can't do anything else. You can't reply to comments, you can't get comments, you can't turn on monetization. First, you have to upload the video. And in YouTube Studio, the one thing you cannot do is upload a video. And it's been this way for years and years and years. And nobody at YouTube has thought, none of them have gone to work in the morning, had a cup of coffee, and they're kind of doing their work, and it's like, hey, Bill, Bob, Jill, Susan, come over here. I got this idea. Look, I noticed, we don't have an upload button. in the YouTube Studio app. How did we miss that? And then everybody else in the office goes, oh, yeah, good idea. We should add an upload button. And it's never happened in all these years. Stuff like that, yeah. It always makes me feel like I'm living in the wrong universe. That any universe that would have me as a member of that universe, this wouldn't happen. Like, I feel like I got sent to the wrong one most of the time when I see stuff like that. And it's like, you know, if YouTube hired me, the first thing I do, you know, I showed up, I sit at my desk, I start making a YouTube to-do list, and number one on my list will be, you know, put an upload button on the YouTube Studio. It's like, why? Anyway, of course, you can still upload videos, but you actually have to go to YouTube itself. So you actually have to, you know, go into your YouTube channel, log into your YouTube channel, make sure you're logged into the right account, the right channel, and on, you know, as I'm watching videos, like I'm watching videos from other people on YouTube, there's an upload button down at the bottom of the screen. You know, you click on upload and then upload it goes. You go to the YouTube Studio app, there is no option to upload any videos from there. So it's one of the weirdest things. It's one of the many things I don't understand about YouTube. Makes me laugh. It really does. A couple other quick stories before I move on to pop culture and perhaps YouTube stories. The letter F has fallen off on my MacBook keyboard. It's yeah, I've been keeping track of this. This is an ongoing drama in my life, that on my MacBook, the keys on the keyboard are wearing out, and from time to time, a key will break, just pop off the keyboard, and then it won't go back into place. You can kind of, you know, you can put it over the square again, and then you can sort of use it a little bit, but then, you know, you're typing away and it just pops off over and over and over again. It's broken, basically. And slowly but surely, all the keys are breaking, and I figured out that I can replace them with other keys. So I go on the keyboard and I find like a special character key that I never use, and I carefully pop it off, and it's not broken, it's still, the clips are still intact, and then I put it in place of the letter that broke. So slowly but surely, all my keys, the most important ones, the letters of the alphabet that I use to type, they're all breaking, they're all coming off. And now I'm going through all the numbers now, like numbers 1, 2, 3, and I'm removing all of those and then clicking them into place where the letters are. So now my keyboard is becoming completely indecipherable, you know? It's kind of funny. But at some point, I'm going to run out of keys. I'm already running out of them. Yeah, so maybe out there I can find like an old MacBook, you know, like in the junkyard or something, an old MacBook Pro, and I can just pop off all the keys, and then I can just replace them with all the new ones, replace those on my keyboard or something like that. But yeah, we'll see. The other story that jumped out at me was another story from Bali, because, you know, I just spent a long time in Sumatra off and on, and it felt like it was a bit of a struggle to be a tourist in Indonesia because of the visa restrictions and smartphone restrictions, SIM card restrictions. All of those basic things seem to be getting more and more difficult in Indonesia, whereas the trend in some other countries is for it to get easier and easier. You know, for example, Vietnam just reintroduced their 90-day tourist visa, things like that. And yet in Indonesia, they still have the 30-day visa on arrival, you know, with a very complex procedure to extend that to stay any longer than that. It just seems difficult in Indonesia. And if you're following stories coming out of Bali, it seems like every month the local government in Bali puts in place a new rule restricting what tourists can do, like which tourists can even come to Bali and what tourists can do when they get there, how they can behave and things like that. I don't know how many of these laws ever end up like fully in place and are being enforced. It's hard to keep track of these things because there was a story that foreigners would no longer be allowed to rent scooters in Bali. You know, foreigners renting scooters would be banned. And then they said foreigners will no longer be allowed to climb mountains, banned. You know, because all these foreigners were doing disrespectful things. You know, they climb the mountain to the top and they visit the temple and then they make some kind of a goofy Instagram video or TikTok or YouTube short and they disrespect the temple. So the authority says that, you know, that's it. Foreigners can no longer climb mountains, no more. Or, you know, foreigners are always riding scooters with no helmet and getting in accidents, driving carelessly. Okay, that's it. Foreigners, you can no longer rent scooters. I keep hearing these stories over and over. Or there's a story that to get a visa to go to Bali, you had to be at a certain income level. You had to prove you had this much money in the bank and you would spend this much money while you were in Bali. They didn't want low budget people like me or backpackers to go to Bali anymore. We were going to be banned. So I see all these stories, but I don't know if any of them actually are true or if these policies became laws or not. I don't really know. It's hard to keep track of them all. But there is a news story just came out that because they've been talking about taxes, and a brand new tourist tax has been approved and is going into effect. When is it going into effect? So there's going to be a Bali tourist tax of 150,000 rupiah, which is about $10 US. I think it's coming into effect in February of 2024. And of course, in all the articles, they say that this money, you know, $10 per person, is going to be collected and they're going to use it to, you know, make tourism better, deal with garbage disposal, like, you know, having a million or millions of tourists every year coming to Bali, of course, produces a lot of garbage, a lot of waste, and then this $10 tax will be used to deal with this increase in the volume of human waste of any kind, et cetera, et cetera. Whether you believe any of those stories, or, you know, or whether the money is just going to go straight into some government official's pocket, you know, that we'll never know for sure. But anyway, that's this new tourist tax. And it seems like yet another barrier in Indonesia. You know, they're just making things more difficult for foreign tourists to go there and to go to Bali in particular. But I was comparing that mentally to the situation in Malaysia, because Malaysia also has instituted a tourist tax, and of course it is, my calculations, over 6 times higher than the one for Indonesia. So for Bali, it's $10 per visitor, and they arrive, you know, they get a 30-day tourist visa, and they have to pay $10 for those 30 days. In Malaysia, you pay, how much is it? I've lost track of the amount. It is, 10 ringgit per day. So every foreigner in Malaysia is paying 300 ringgit per month, which is around the equivalent of $65 for the month. So even though, you know, people are going to be upset that in Bali they have to pay $10 a month for a tourist tax, in Malaysia we're paying $65 a month in tourist tax. So go figure. Yeah, it's a very annoying tourist tax here in Malaysia. Yeah, don't like it at all. Obviously, I don't want to pay $65 a month in tourist tax. You know, who would want to do that? It's annoying to pay that much, and the system for paying it is quite annoying as well. The government has made the hotels collect it, which adds another layer of complexity. At least the tax in Bali, I think they're going to have to pay it at the airport. So when they land at the airport in Bali, you go through the airport, you got to go through customs, you got to go through immigration, you got to register your phone at customs. Now you're going to have to go to the counter and pay your $10 tourist tax. But here in Malaysia, the onus for collecting the tax has been placed on hotels. And that, of course, adds conflict between the tourist and the hotel, which, of course, the hotel operators don't like it either. Nobody likes this tax. But hey, that's what they've done. And speaking of Indonesia and moving on to YouTube stories, I'm still following a couple of YouTube travel channels. I follow these people not because they are necessarily the best, YouTubers out there. They just happen to be doing things that interest me and have a style that interests me. So, for example, I'm following Two Up and Overloaded. They were riding a motorcycle around Java, and then they took a boat from Java to Borneo. So they're in Kalimantan now. And I follow them just because I like their style of video, because they do a little bit of a behind-the-scenes approach where they sit down in front of a camera and they narrate. They tell the story of what they did over the last couple of days, and then they stick in video from those events. And I kind of like that. I like storytelling, I guess, based on talking to other people and interacting online with Planet Doug subscribers. The Two Up and Overloaded approach isn't popular. People don't seem to like that narration approach, but I like it. I enjoy it. So every time one of their videos pops up, I eagerly click on it, and they're very crunchy videos for me, because I'll watch the whole thing, from beginning all the way to the end. I'm that engaged. It's a very crunchy video for me. And the most recent video, they weren't planning to, I don't know the name of the video. You'd have to go to Two Up and Overloaded to see it for yourself. But their idea when they got to Kalimantan was just to get on their motorcycles and then just go exploring. And they're going to go look at, find orangutans, go into the jungle and this sort of thing. But they met up with some other foreigners there who had just completed like a jungle cruise. They have these old houseboats, like they used to be super luxurious houseboats that would go up the river, and I guess they're still in operation today as tourist boats, and foreigners can rent them and then go on these trips up rivers into the jungle and go to like these eco sites. The video that I watched, they didn't get to these places yet. They were just talking about getting the ticket for the boat, how much it costs, the boat ride up the river. They were documenting that, but they haven't actually posted a video about going into the jungle yet. So I haven't seen that, but I assume they're going to go hike through the jungle and things like that. But that was I thought that was a little bit interesting. To me, it was overly expensive for what you get. I mean, they're doing a 2-day, 1-night cruise. So day one, they get on the boat and go upriver, and then I guess they park for the night and they sleep on the boat, and then the day two, they do whatever exploration they're going to do, and then the boat takes them back. So it's really just a ride in, one night, and a ride out. And for that, it cost $500 US. I think that was for both of them, but I'm not sure about that. It wouldn't have been 500 each. I don't think they would have paid that much. I think they got the whole boat to themselves. So just the two of them in one big boat for $500. And because it is that expensive, it's a little bit of a luxury trip. They actually have a mattress on top of the boat, like a big, almost like a big sofa with pillows, and they can just sort of sit there with a canopy above their heads. And they have Indonesian cooks and staff on the boat, and would bring them hot or cold drinks. And as the boat, is chugging up the river into the jungle, they can sit up there, just as I'm doing right here, sit on the mattress, leaning against a pillow, having a cold drink or a hot cup of tea, and then watching, the river and the jungle go by. And I guess the food is quite elaborate. So it's kind of at that level of an experience. But yeah, that's expensive. $250 per day. Yeah. But anyway, that's what they were doing. But the thing that jumped out at me was that they were walking through the streets of this city. I forget the name of the city on Kalimantan, where the boat from Java docked. And they heard birds, like just loud, deafening bird song. And they became curious about what this is. And it turns out that they were walking beside one of those big cement buildings that they use for a type of swallow, I think, or a swift that makes bird nests out of their saliva, and that is used to make bird nest soup, which is a big delicacy in China. And I found that really interesting because all over Sumatra I saw these buildings as well. I mean, I remember the very first time I saw them, I landed in Sumatra for the first time, and I'm riding my bike up and down the streets, and I would see these giant, well, not giant, 4 or 5 story buildings, higher than all the buildings around them, and they were completely faceless, just cement, flat cement walls on all sides with tiny holes drilled in the cement. There were no windows of any kind. It looked like some sort of a black ops prison or something. It looked like, you know, Guantanamo Bay or something, you know. And I was wondering, what the heck are these buildings? And I eventually found out, as Tim and Marissa did, that these are buildings housing birds, and they are, you know, they're making bird nests, and they sell the nests as a delicacy, and they make bird nest soup out of them. But recently they've started playing they're playing bird song over the speakers to attract more birds to come and nest inside the building. And I noticed that when I was in Padang, because I went to this restaurant called Around 19, and it's kind of a rooftop cafe with open glass and open windows everywhere. And there was this bird song that was almost deafening. I was up there, and it's like this sound of these birds was just like, what is going on? And at that time, I thought it was just because there were so many of these birds. And I thought, man, there are so many birds in that building. I mean, it was just really, really loud. But after watching Two Up and Overloaded's video, now I realize, those were speakers. That's why it was so loud. They weren't actual birds. They were just playing bird song over loudspeakers to attract more birds. And that's why it was so loud. And it was like, okay, now it all makes sense to me. So, yeah, anyway, I'm looking forward to their next videos from Kalimantan. I've also been following an American YouTuber called Nick K, and I don't know where he is right now, but according to his videos, he's in Java riding a bicycle with his girlfriend, and the two of them flew from Malaysia. I think I don't know his girlfriend's name. She's not always front and center of the videos. He's the main video guy, Nick. But anyway, they flew from Malaysia to Jakarta, spent some time there, and then they started riding bicycles, like full-on touring bikes with camping equipment, cooking stoves, pots, pans, food, water, you know, the whole deal, tent, sleeping bags. And their idea is to ride to Bali. So I've been following their videos. I'm finding their stories interesting. And in a recent video, they stopped in a village that happened to be known for making roof tiles. I mean, they didn't know it was there. They didn't go there to look at this. They just happened to be riding their bikes through the countryside, and they found this place. You know, they looked through the door of one building, and there was a group of 7 or 8 men and women in there, and they were working with clay and a big machine that they run by hand, and they were putting clay into this machine and then using this machine to stamp roof tiles. And then they carry the wet clay into another room where they have a big fire going and they fire the clay to harden it. So it was basically a local roof tile company. And then the more time they spent in the village, it turns out they found more and more and more and more of these places all doing the same thing. So I'm assuming that that region was well known for the quality of the clay, and that just produced this roof tile industry. And I found that fascinating because I love stuff like that. And that's one of the advantages of going on a bike tour. You stumble across things like that if you're riding a bicycle or walking. When I was in Sumatra one day, I remember riding my bike out into the countryside, and I came across a little farm where they were making soy products. So again, it was a small family-run operation. You know, it had these huge vats of boiling soy milk, and of course they're making soy milk and they're making tofu, and you know, they're making all these products. And I was able to, you know, connect with some of the people there, and they invited me inside, and I got to sit down with them and chat with them, and they brought me a cup of hot soy milk to try, and I got to take video of the whole operation. I just really enjoy stuff like that. And Nick Kay, he's doing a lot of things like that. Whenever he sees something going on or an open door somewhere, he's like just getting in there with his camera. It's like, hey, can I come in? Can I come in with my camera? You know, I want to film everything that's going on. So I found that that video quite interesting. But in a previous behind-the-scenes video, I was talking about how I'm worried about their visa status, because it seems like they're moving really slowly, and you've got all these great advantages to bike touring. So they're sleeping in their tent in these villages every night. So they end up with these really interesting encounters. They go into the village, talk to the local people, get permission to put up their tent, and then they have all, you know, the local people, you know, take care of them to an extent, and you know, give them food and let them use their bathrooms or sinks to wash dishes, and they sit in their living rooms and have a cup of tea together or coffee, and they talk. And in the morning, you know, they're at their campsite making breakfast, and they have more encounters with the local people. And then they get on their bikes and they start riding, and then they see something like this village where they're making the clay roof tiles, and they dive into that experience and spend 2 hours there, you know. So I'm watching all of this and I'm thinking, oh, this is all very interesting in a way. I'm enjoying this, and their days seem to be very interesting, and it's all happening because they're riding a bicycle, but they're not covering any ground. I kept thinking, how far could you have gotten in that one day? You did all those things, you know, the breakfast in the morning, goodbye tea with the family, taking photos with the family, all the selfies, and then you stop in this market and you stop in this market and you explore the tile factory, and on and on and on. And then the day is you've hardly covered any ground at all, and now already you have to look for a campsite and do it all over again. I'm thinking, how far did you get, right? So I've sort of mentally been keeping track of their journey and trying to keep track of how their visa is going. It's like, man, what's going to happen? And I predicted that there's no way they're going to make it to Bali. At this rate, at that speed, their visa is going to expire long before they get to Bali. You know, I think they've got total, if you go straight from Jakarta straight to Denpasar, that's 1,200 kilometers. And they're taking a roundabout route. So they're probably going to end up covering like 13, 14, 1,500 kilometers to get from Jakarta to Bali. And there's just no way they're going to cover that much ground moving at this pace. That's what I was thinking. And then in the latest video, they're in this city, a coastal city called Cirebon. I think it's called Cirebon. And Nick says in the video, yeah, our visa is expiring, so we have to come to this city, Cirebon. I looked into it, and there is an immigration office in Cirebon, and he says, yeah, we're going to need 5 days here to extend our visa for another 30 days. And I went, okay, that makes sense. And then I was looking at the map, and as I said, I think they're going to have to cover 1,500 kilometers to get to Bali, and to get from Jakarta to where they are now, they've ridden 200 kilometers. So in the entire 30 days, that they've been in in Indonesia, on Java, they've only covered 200 kilometers in 30 days. So I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. And then they're going to get a 30-day extension, hopefully. I'm looking forward to hearing the story about that, whether they get asked to get a sponsor, or, Two Up and Overloaded had to get a visa extension as well, and it took them 2 weeks to do it, 14 days to get the extension. And I'm wondering what's going to happen to a Nick K. And even if they do get the 30 days, now they've got, 1,300 kilometers to get to Bali. And at that pace, they're not going to get anywhere near Bali. So again, as I said in my last video, that's not a big deal. That's not a problem. They're just going to basically stop cycling. They're going to cycle as long as they can. And then when their visa looks like it's going to expire, they're going to have to make a choice: fly out and fly back in and get a new visa, or just hop on a bus and get to Bali. And because the cycling is going to be too slow. And anyway, I just found their videos an interesting illustration of this contradiction in bike touring, that being on a bicycle opens you up to all these experiences that you might not get if you're traveling using other modes of transportation, which is great, but all those experiences take a lot of time, and then you don't have any time left to actually huff and puff and ride your bicycle down the road and up the mountains and up and down the mountains, right? So, yeah, I just find that interesting. So I'm going to keep following Nick K's journey to Bali and see how they get there. And a little pop culture summary to end today's behind the scenes video. I finished the 3rd season of Only Murders in the Building. I don't have a lot to say about it that I haven't already said. That I found the 3rd season a little bit less engaging than seasons 2 and season 1 in particular, mainly because in season 3, the 3 main characters were they each had sort of separate storylines that had a lot to do with romance, and I was not interested in that at all. And the whole idea of them having a podcast, like a serial podcast, investigating a murder inside their apartment building, and that was the gimmick of season 1 and season 2, and I really enjoyed that. And I loved all the behind the scenes stuff of making the podcast, recording the audio, having fans of the podcast following them around and discussing their show. And I found all that kind of quirky and fun, and all of that kind of disappeared in season 3. They changed settings from the building to a Broadway theater. And the Broadway theater, is a fascinating subject. I find it's really interesting, but it's like, it's called Only Murders in the Building. So I want them living in the building and investigating the murders in the building. But they were actually investigating the murder in the Broadway theater. And as I said, the 3 characters had separate storylines for the most part, and that they were hardly doing any podcasting at all. And towards the end of the season, episode 10 was the finale. They tried to correct that, and they brought the 3 characters together, and they started doing the podcast again, and all that stuff I enjoyed sort of came back. But for me, it was a little bit too late, too little, too late. It was still good. It's definitely, I recommend it. It's a great show. Even season 3 was highly enjoyable. I liked it a lot, despite the things that I didn't like. I still think it's really well done. And at the end, they really took all the storylines and pulled them together in a way that, to be honest, I didn't see before that point. What I'm saying is the murder and the investigation of the murder was, and the themes of that were mirrored in the play, in the musical that they were making for Broadway. So the storyline of the play was matching the storyline of the murder and their investigation. And I didn't see it, to be honest. I didn't make the connection. But at the very end, you know, episode 9 and the finale, season 10, they really drove it home. And it's like, that's how it all connects. That's how it all comes together. And I can see, if I was reading the script, it would be very clever. You know, the structure is there. It's like, there's much more meaning in the story than I realized. But I didn't really see it until I got to the finale. And they were actually, you know, you saw the play, you saw the performance, and it was mirroring the murder investigation and all the events and the motivations, the situations in the murder itself were in the play, and they move together. And it's like, okay, very clever, hats off, very well done, very well written, you know. So I appreciated that. But as I said, I didn't even notice it until the very end. So maybe I'm that dumb, or maybe they didn't do a good enough job bringing that out of the storyline. You know, maybe they could have done a better job. Maybe audiences like me, viewers like me, we need it spelled out better. Like, they did this very clever thing, but I didn't even realize how clever it was until the season was over. And then it's like, that was very clever. But I didn't pick up on it fully at the time. Anyway, that's Only Murders in the Building. One more show to talk about, and then I'll wind this up. I can see my Olympus battery charger across the room, and the yellow light keeps starting flashing, which means the battery isn't charging anymore. So I have to keep stopping and going over there, taking out the battery, reinserting it so that it starts charging again. And the battery I have in the camera right now is just about to die. So I have to move fast here. So the big show that I'm watching right now is called Moving. It's a Korean show, and it's a big show. Season 1 is 20 episodes long, and each episode is like an hour, 50 minutes, or an hour, 45 minutes. It's a big show. 20 episodes, an hour each, which I really like, because I hate it when these shows just go by so quickly. Even 10 episodes for Only Murders in the Building is not enough for me. I want 15. Just like, come on, you know, keep the story out. Keep the story, you know, keep it going, like really draw this out. I hate it when it ends so quickly. And in Moving, this South Korean story, because they have 20 episodes to work with, it's a real slow burn, and I really like that. They're really taking their time. Like in a lot of American shows like now, like if it's like a superhero show, the very first episode, the hero gets their powers, you know, discovers their powers, develops their powers, becomes skilled at their powers, meets the villain, has a huge fight. Like, this all has to happen in the very first episode. Otherwise, they're afraid they're going to lose their audience. Like Netflix or HBO or Amazon or Disney, whoever the, you know, executives are, if they don't see a huge audience right out of the gate, they just cancel it. So American writers and producers, I think, they feel this pressure that our show has to come out of the gates gangbusters. The first episode, we have to have huge spectacle, explosions, drama, superpowers, a big fight. Everything has to happen in the first episode. And I just hate it when that happens, because I see everything that happened in the first episode, and I would have enjoyed all those events, all those storylines, but I want to really enjoy it. Take those events that is in the first episode, stretch it out over 10 episodes, and then I would really enjoy it, you know. In the very first episode, I don't need to see the hero in a big battle with the villain. I don't even need to know who the hero is yet. I don't need to know who the villain is. I don't need to know what their powers are. I don't need to know what their motivations are. I just need to be introduced slowly into the world that they inhabit. And I want to learn about these people, about their situation, their life, who they are. And then, you know, many episodes down the line, you can introduce the discovery of their superpowers, and you can slowly introduce the villains in the background, you know, doing their thing, and slowly bring them together. And, you know, that's what I need. That's what I really enjoy. There are some issues with the storytelling. It's not a perfect show. I wouldn't call it perfect, but I really am enjoying it, particularly the slow burn, you know, the gradual introduction of events. And then they go back in time now. They're slowly going back in time and giving us backstory of some of the main characters and telling us more about who they are and what happened to them previously. And they're just slowly uncovering all the threads in the story and the histories of all the characters. And the characters, the main characters themselves, slowly revealing what their powers are, and even themselves learning what they are and learning how to master them, you know. It's yeah, very enjoyable. And as I mentioned in my previous behind the scenes video, I used to live in South Korea, so I'm enjoying seeing the world of Seoul and South Korea in general, because I recognize so many things. In these first episodes, there's this one backstory where a coffee machine plays a big role. Like, it's in a big office building, and there's a coffee dispenser, and you get these small paper cups of sweetened milk coffee. And you take, like, the currency there is, you know, the South Korean won, W-O-N, and you get 100 won coins, and you go up to these machines and you put in 100 won coins until whatever the amount is, and then you can scan all the buttons, you know, how much milk and sugar, the type of coffee you want, push the button, a little paper cup drops, and then a squirt of, you know, hot coffee goes in there and you drink it. And I just love seeing that machine, because when I was living in Korea, I lived on those machines. And I remember my first year in particular, I showed up, you know, I had no job lined up, I had no place to live, I didn't know anybody in South Korea, I didn't know anything, I didn't even know why I was there, what I was going to do when I got there, you know, but I flew into the airport, made my way to a cheap little inn, and then I started trying to find work as an English teacher. And this was before the internet as we know it today. You know, these resources didn't exist back then. So I'm basically walking the streets and I'm going to these schools. You know, I see a big sign for an English school and I'm just cold calling them. I just walk through the door, go up to the front desk, and it's like, you guys, are you hiring? Do you need an English teacher, right? And all of these schools had one of these coffee machines in the lobby. And at a few of these places, well, at a lot of them, at that time, there was such a shortage of English teachers that you could show up in the morning, like this could be 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd walk in, go up to the front desk and say, I'm from Canada, tell them who I am, and I'm looking for work as an English teacher. And they would say, oh, and they would walk me down the hall, open a door to a classroom, push me inside, and close the door behind me. And I walk into the room, and there's like 15 students sitting at desks waiting for their teacher to show up. And then they would walk me down the hall and then just put me in the room and close the door behind me. And I'm like, what's going on? And then I would just turn around and leave, go back to the front desk. It's like, what was that? He says, oh, we have a class that needs a teacher. You can start today. And I was like, well, I'm not really ready for that right now. And that was a common experience back in those days. It was quite an experience, let me tell you. But anyway, when I did start teaching English regularly. A lot of the classes were early in the morning, and South Korea in February and March, let me tell you, it is a cold country. It is cold. So you go to these classes, some of them as early as 6:30 in the morning, pitch dark. You're just like freezing to death. And you go to these schools to teach your English class, and those coffee machines in the lobby were a lifesaver. I mean, I walked through the door. The first thing, I'm digging out my pocket full of 100 won coins, which I'm collecting for this purpose, you know, and I'm getting my cup of coffee, and I'll go through like 3 of them in a row before I go into the room and start teaching the class, you know. So anyway, I have a long history with those South Korean coffee vending machines, and then to see them in the show moving, featured, you know, so heavily in one of these backstory episodes, I thought that was a lot of fun. So I'm enjoying the show from that point of view, and I'm enjoying everything else about the show, to be honest. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of it. It reminds me of things like Firestarter from Stephen King. Not so much the movies, or the I think Firestarter was turned into a movie, maybe 2 movies and a TV show. None of them are very good. My memory of them is not good, because my memory of the book Firestarter is very good. I really enjoyed the Stephen King book Firestarter, which again is a little bit about superpowers, but not quite in the superhero way. It's more of a superhero story. But anyway, the story of Firestarter reminds me of the story of Moving. It's that kind of atmosphere, that kind of storyline. If you've ever read Firestarter, that's what Moving is kind of like, but set in South Korea. And it reminds me of the series Heroes, mainly because the main character in Moving is exactly like Hero from Heroes, you know, the Japanese superhero dude, because he's kind of chubby and jovial, and perhaps not that intelligent, you know. He's just sort of a friendly, happy, jovial kind of guy, super loyal to his friends, and that's he reminds me of Hero from Heroes. You know, the characters have a lot in common. And I really enjoyed, you know, the show Heroes as well, long ago. All right, so that's it. I'm going to shut down there. My Olympus battery isn't charging anymore. The yellow light is flashing at me. I don't know what the problem is. I'm going to have to get a new charger, or maybe the battery is faulty. I have no idea. So that is my technology problem for the morning that I'm going to be working on. So shutting down. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Hopefully a crunchy video. Keep you engaged until the very end, and the question for the Crunch Club. I don't have a Crunch Club question for this video. I guess it's not very crunchy. See you next time.